ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलरा वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ Verse number 80. आस्तां शास्त्रस्य सिद्धान्तः युक्त्या वाक्यात् परोक्षधीः स्वर्गादिवाक्यवन्नैवं दशमे व्यभिचारतः. So in these verses, well, from 70 to 96, still we have to cover some 16 verses. Well, Vidyaranya is doing Mahavakya Vichara as a means of a aparoksha jnanam, and this is being discussed as a part of the 7 avasthas of a jiva. We discussed that, right? So ajnanam, first step, second is avrutti, third is a vikshepa, fourth is a paroksha jnanam, fifth is a aparoksha jnanam, sixth is a shoka nivrutti, and seventh is a trupti, prapti. So of these 7, well, he is dealing with this a particular stage called aparoksha jnanam. And aparoksha jnanam is attained through Mahavakya Vichara. Paroksha jnanam is attained through Avantar Vakya Vichara. So then the question was how to do Mahavakya Vichara. Well, here he is doing here with the help of a Vakya Vritti. And because Vakya Vritti is basically, it's a Vritti on Mahavakya. Vakya means Mahavakya. So that is Acharya's Grantha. So with the help of Vakya Vritti, he is doing a Mahavakya Vichara. And we have completed Mahavakya Vichara and established that Mahavakya Vichara should be done by Lakshana, Bhagatyaga Lakshana, etc. And we have to apply that Lakshana on the both the Jiva and Brahman. And then only the Aikyam is possible, which is Mahavakya. So Jiva Brahma Aikyam is possible when that opposite attributes are removed from both the sides, from the Vachyartha, from the direct meaning. And we are doing that kind of a daring to remove removing the attributes from both the sides because they are mithya. That is why. And so, well, from Jiva we remove the Shariratrayam, the medium, and the Chidabhasa, and then all the attributes also will go. And from this side, well, Tatpada, the direct meaning of a Tatpada, we are removing Prapanchatraya along with the Chidabhasa. And when we do that, well, we get a Aikyam. There is none other than the consciousness, limitless consciousness in the form of a Pratyagatma. Pratyagatma means inner self. Inner self means not available for objectification. That's it. So innermost self. Innermost self means this is a thing. Objectification is always considered external for the one who objectifies. So innermost means, well, he is in the form of a subject, in the form of an I, who is never available for objectification. And this consciousness is then, well, it is not a Sarvagnyam, Alpagnyam, not Alpashaktiman, Sarvashaktiman, etc. etc. All these attributes are removed. All superior and inferior attributes are removed. And then it is just one consciousness, which was in the both Jiva and Ishvara due to that Upadhi, which is removed. That's called Lakshana, Bhagatyaga Lakshana. And that is how Paramatma Jivatma Aikya Jnanam takes place. This is called Mahavakya Vichara, in which you take the word of the Mahavakya and then in the direct meaning you do this Lakshana and you establish the Aikyam. This is a Vichara. Vichara means analysis. Analysis of Mahavakya is in this way. And verse 77, 78, well, the Prayojanam has been shown. Verse 77 is a Vakya Vritti. Verse 40. What is the Prayojanam? Removing misconception for pertaining to the both. Misconception regarding Jiva. And that is Abrahmatvam, finitude. So I am finite. And therefore that finitude goes away when you equate with the Brahman. And from Ishvara also, with regard to Ishvara also, there is a misconception. That is Parokshatvam. Naturally, all the time we feel that Ishvara is Paroksham. Ishvara in the form of myself, that kind of thinking will never take place. So always we consider as a Paroksham. Not even Pratyaksha also. Pratyaksha also, if it is Ishvara is a Pratyaksha, that person would never do anything wrong, right? Yeah, because in his Sarvagna, Sarvashaktiman and all, he will never do wrong. But we somehow feel he is Paroksham. So that Paroksham with regard to, it's a misconception with regard to Ishvara, that also is removed. Because that Brahman is equated with this Jiva, which is a Paroksha basically. So Paroksham also goes away with regard to Ishvara, and a finitude with misconception of a finitude with regard to Jiva. So this Mahavakya Vichara ultimately will serve this purpose, to remove both the types of misconceptions. Well, and then we in verse 79 also, up to 78 Vakya Vritti, the Shloka's quotation. From this verse 79 is from Vidyaranya now. And he very important verse, we discussed also this, that Vidyaranya says this, if this being so, Mahavakya gives you Aparoksha Jnanam, very clear. Mahavakya means a Brahman which is generally considered, Paramatma which is generally considered as a Paroksha, is none other than this Jiva, means Aparoksha. And therefore, and Jiva, is not a finite entity, it is Brahman alone, and therefore he is limitless. And therefore you are getting a Aparoksha Jnanam with regard to this Atma, and that is Mahavakya Vichara is through Shravanam, and of course Mananam, definitely. But doubts, clear knowledge means no doubt will remain also. So this misconception will go. So Shravanam Mananam itself will give you a Paroksha Jnana. But then the misconception is Shravanam Mananam gives a Paroksha Jnana. And then Nididhyasanam gives you Aparoksha Jnana. Meditation is required, then you get Aparoksha Jnana. That was said. And then Vidyaranya says that is not correct to say like this. Verse 79, you see that Evam Sati Mahavakyat Paroksha Jnanam Iryate. Yaihi Tesham Shastra Siddhanta Vijnanam Shobhate Taram. So Evam Sati, if this Evam Sati should be taken later. Mahavakyat Paroksha Jnanam Iti Iryate. Somebody says that Mahavakya, through Mahavakya one gains a Paroksha Jnana, etc. Yaihi, one who say, by those who say like this, Tesham Shastra Siddhanta Vijnanam Shobhate Taram. For I think their knowledge pertaining to the Shastra Siddhanta, what has been conveyed by the Shastra, and the knowledge pertaining to the Shastra, etc., essence of the Shastra, Shobhate Taram, that shines so much. That he is doing a mockery of them. So we saw that also. And now we have to see verse number 80. Now here Purvapakshi says, now the little serious Purvapaksha is there. See, here in this verse number 80, he says that, see, there are, this Purvapaksha, now we are discussing, it is a part of Vedanta only. Our own friends and acharyas. So that's a little serious thing. People, certain acharyas in a Vedanta don't believe that Mahavakya gives a Aparoksha Jnana. They say Mahavakya generates a Paroksha Jnanam. So many arguments they do. Another Acharya says Mahavakya, like Vidyaranya, that Mahavakya gives a aparoksha jnana. And the people who say Mahavakya gives a paroksha jnanam, well, they say that in any sentence, Mahavakya means a sentence. Sentence means words. Words are connected. It cannot be unconnected words together come and make a sentence. That's not the thing. If unconnected words come together and you call sentence, there will not be a meaning of that sentence. So Shabdartha is one thing, Vakyartha is another thing. So Shabdas connect themselves together and generate a single meaning called Vakyartha. So now those acharyas say, like any Vakya, Mahavakya you take, there are words. Words should be connected to each other ultimately. And therefore, Tat or Tvam or what, Asi, whatever it is, or Ayam, Atma and Brahman, or Prajnanam and Brahman, words are connected and give a one Vakyartha, the sentence of the meaning. And if words are connected to each other and give you a meaning, ultimately, therefore that cannot give you a knowledge of a Atma which is Asangaha. How will it give? Because you are getting a knowledge from the sentence which is giving you a connected meaning. And therefore, ultimately, you are gaining a knowledge of Atma which is connected, not Asanga. Such an unconnected knowledge of Atma, means Atma which is Asanga, unconnected to anything, whole, that takes place only in a Samadhi, means Nididhyasana. In our case, it is Samadhi. Samadhi word Acharya uses in 6th chapter, Bhashyakara uses in 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And so, there the Samadhi means Nididhyasana, you know also. So even if I use the word Samadhi, even Bhagavan has used word Samadhi. Don't think Samadhi of that yoga. Here Samadhi means Nididhyasana. So in Nididhyasanam, basically, well, definitely you can gain a knowledge of Atma which is unconnected. If it is unconnected, definitely it is whole. This is a very powerful, there is a very powerful group basically headed by Vachaspati Mishra, who has written a commentary on a Shankara Bhashya on Brahma Sutra called Bhamati. I'll tell you something about these two groups. See, there is a Shankara Bhashya on a Brahma Sutra. The first commentary written on a Shankara Bhashya on Brahma Sutra is by Padmapadacharya. And he wrote a commentary on the entire Samanvaya Adhyaya, the first chapter. And he wrote a commentary also on a Avirodha Adhyaya, second chapter, some certain adhikaranas. Afterwards, something happened and he could not write it. Whatever happened, we don't know. But so out of this, all is lost. Only his commentary called Panchapadika is available only on first four sutras. So Brahma Sutra Chatussutri. On that only this Panchapadika is available. But this is not a direct commentary on Sutra. Please understand that. Yes, a commentary on a Shankara Bhashya on Brahma Sutra. Right? So first commentary written on Brahma Sutra on a Shankara Bhashya, Brahma Sutra Shankara Bhashya, is of a Padmapadacharya. Anyway, and Prakashatma Muni, there was after that, after Padmapadacharya, there was Prakashatma Muni, one great person, scholar. And he wrote a commentary on this Panchapadika. And also on a Shankara Bhashya later. And that is called, we call it as a Vivaranam. You know, as such, Vivaranam meaning is a exposition. So that's called Vivaranam. So Vivaranam is a tika, basically. So then the people who accept the principles in the Vivaranam, we call it as a Vivarana Prasthanam. So and later all acharyas came, many acharyas have accepted his view. It was Advaita Siddhanta, but there is some difference which I am going to talk to you. So Vivarana Prasthana, because he from them, Sir Prakashat Muni has written a commentary on a Panchapadika, etc. And that commentary is called Panchapadika is a commentary of a Padmapadacharya. That is on Shankar Bhashya of a Brahma Sutra. Acharya has written a commentary on Brahma Sutra. That's called Shankar Bhashya, right? So this is how it is. And there was another Acharya, Vachaspati Mishra, very great. That Vachaspati Mishra has also written a commentary on Shankar Bhashya. And that is called Bhamati. Because he was a Grihastha and his wife's name was a Bhamati. And he gave a name of the entire commentary by his wife's name because she was so great. It happened so, this person was so knowledgeable and so scholar. This Vachaspati, I will tell you something about this Vachaspati Mishra. He has written a commentary on a Vedanta, of course this Shankar Bhashya of Brahma Sutra, that is one thing called Bhamati. He has written a commentary on Nyaya Darshanam also. I mean some grantha. He has written commentary on Patanjali Yoga Shastra. He has written commentary on a Sankhya Karika of Ishwar Krishna. Sankhya Karika, that is Ishwar Krishna, there are Sankhya Sutras, on which there was one Ishwar Krishna who has written a Karika. And that's called Sankhya Karika. Of course not available now. But he has written, our Vachaspati Mishra has written commentary on Sankhya also. On many subjects. And of course, his heart was with Advaita. That's for sure. But he was having a knowledge as if like he was a Dvadasha Darshanacharya. And so he was all the time, whole day remained busy, all the time writing and, thinking about it and writing all these commentaries, etc. He never paid attention to his married life. She used to serve silently, very silently. Whatever his requirements and food and this and that, she may be coming and keeping the plate and everything, and this fellow must be, after doing something, he must be seeing, oh, the food is there and eating. Like that, several years passed. And then he realized that I am a married person, I have never paid attention to my wife. And he felt so much, he had that, he was repenting also. And then, and she did not call like that, etc. She did not draw his attention, etc. So he thought, how to now, she has served so much to me, what should I do? So all entire commentary on a Brahma Sutra, whatever he has written on a Shankar Bhashya of Brahma Sutra, that he named it as a Bhamati, because her name was a Bhamati. And on Bhamati also there is a Vedanta Kalpataru. There is another commentary. On Vedanta Kalpataru there is another commentary called Parimala. And so and then there are other things also. And there is you must have heard about Anand Giri also. Anand Giri has written a commentary on a Brahma Sutra Shankar Bhashya called Nyaya Nirnaya. And our Swami Govindanji of a Kailas Ashrama in Rishikesh, earlier Acharya, it seems to be that Swami Govindanji was a grandfather of a Murari Bapu. It almost, in my mind, it is like this. And that he was very great Acharya in a Kailas Ashram. Swami Govindanji has also written a commentary on a Shankar Bhashya of a Brahma Sutra called Ratna Prabha. Very, very nice commentary. This Bhamati is a very difficult commentary to read. But later this Ratna Prabha and Nyaya Nirnaya, if you comparatively the language, of course everything is in Sanskrit, but it is comparatively easy to follow, etc. But anyway, and this Vachaspati Mishra, who has written a commentary on a Shankar Bhashya, basically on Brahma Sutra, he says, and then later certain, his followers, so that Shravanam, and of course you have to consider as a Mananam also, means through Mahavakya Vichara, one gains Paroksha Jnana. Nididhyasanam alone gives aparoksha jnanam. How Nididhyasanam gives aparoksha jnanam? They say it is because this aparoksha jnanam is generated in Nididhyasanam by special power got by the mind. This unique power of mind converts this paroksha jnanam to aparoksha jnanam. But this is a Bhamati Prasthana. But then, as I told you, the Panchapadika and the commentary on Panchapadika written by that Prakashatma Muni, etc., and on Shankar Bhashya also that called Vivarana. Well, even all this, and the Acharyas who believe in that Vivarana Prasthana, and including our Vidyaranya Swami, well, they say this Shravana Mananam or Mahavakya Vichara, let us say, through Shravana Mananam gives aparoksha jnanam. By the way, Vidyaranya also has written because he was following this Vivarana Prasthana, he has written a commentary on a Shankara's Bhashyam of Brahma Sutra called Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. Very, very beautiful book. Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. There was one another Sarvajñatma Muni, perhaps you might have heard of him, Sarvajñatma Muni, who has written a commentary on Shankar Bhashya of a Brahma Sutra, and that is a Sankshepa Sharirika. Many of our Acharyas now, current Acharyas, also follow Sankshepa Sharirika while teaching Brahma Sutra. Very beautiful. So these are just for your knowledge sake. Many things you must be knowing also. But anyway, Vidyaranya and other earlier acharyas, and so they were saying that is the Shabda, the Mahavakya Vichara gives you aparoksha jnanam called Shabda Aparoksha Vada. And Bhamati Prasthana, etc., we call it as a Shabda Paroksha Vada. Anyway, if Purapakshi follows this Bhamati Prasthana as though, let us say that, or a person who follows Bhamati Prasthana, well, they say Shastrasya Siddhantaha Astam. Well, keep your Siddhanta. He tells us, keep your Siddhanta with yourself. Shastrasya Siddhanta. You are saying Shastra Siddhanta. Shastra Siddhanta what? Shravanam, Mananam, Mahavakya Vichara, etc. will give aparoksha jnanam only. Nididhyasanam removes this habitual error, etc. Well, this your Siddhanta, keep it with yourself. Well, yuktya vakyat parokshadihi eva. Yuktya. So when we made a logical analysis, we find Vakyat means Mahavakyat, Parokshadihi eva. Paroksha Jnanam only is generated through Mahavakya. And so what kind of a yukti you are going to show us? Well, I give you example. It's a wrong example, but he is giving. Yeah, he takes an example of a Swarga. In Veda Purva Bhaga, this discussion on Swarga will be there naturally. Jyotishtomena Swarga Kamo Yajeta. Why Veda Purva? Kathopanishad itself we will have Swarge Lokena Bhayam Kinchanasti, etc., etc., etc. So Varnanam of Swarga is there in 2 lines by Yamaraja. So like that, there is a description of a Swarga in the Veda, in the Purva Bhaga, definitely. So Veda Vakya gives you the knowledge of Swarga. Is Paroksha Jnanam or Paroksha Jnanam? Paroksha Jnanam, right? So, well, because heaven is indirect, Paroksha. And you gain a knowledge through the Veda Vakya, that is a Paroksha Jnanam only. So, well, Mahavakya also belongs to what? Veda. And therefore, Mahavakya also can give you the knowledge of Brahman, of what kind of a knowledge? Paroksha. Because that is also Veda Vakya. This is also Veda Vakya. So, Veda Vakya gives you always Paroksha Jnana. What is a logic? What is this logic? Anyway, we'll see that. So, his Anumana Vakya is this. This is Anumana. So Vedanta Mahavakya Paroksha Jnana Janakam. Vedanta Mahavakya Vedanta Mahavakyat Paroksha Jnana Mahavakyam Paroksha Jnana Janakam. Why? Veda Vakyatvat. Example. Veda Purva Swargadi Vakyavat. So Vedanta Mahavakyam is a paksha. You understand that we have discussed this Anumana, Panchavaya Anumana. Vedanta Mahavakya is a paksha. For that you want to prove something. That's called paksha. And what is the sadhya now? Paroksha Jnana Janakam. The Mahavakya of the Upanishad generates Paroksha Jnanam. Why? Veda Vakyatvat. because it is a Veda Vakya. Example, Swargadi Vakyavat. So, Swargadi Vakyavat. So, this is how he says, Vidyaranya says, Na evam. That is not. Why? Dashame vyabhicharatah. Well, there is an exception for this rule in case of a 10th man. So, Vakya produces aparoksha jnanam, this Vakya. Tvam dashamosi is also Mahavakya. Why? Because he is already 10th. 10th, which is aparoksha, has been told that you are 10th. And then that person says, I am 10th man. That knowledge is not paroksha jnanam, it is aparoksha jnanam. And therefore, you are showing us through yuktya. So you are showing us through anumanam that Mahavakya also belongs to Veda, Swargadi Vakya also belongs to Veda, and Swargadi Vakya generates, gives you a knowledge, paroksha jnanam of the Swarga. Same way, Mahavakya also gives you a paroksha jnanam of Atma or a Brahman, whatever. So this is how you are saying, but we'll tell you. He has used one word, vyabhicharatah. So dashame vyabhicharatah. This anumana, you have shown us anumana, that is that does not apply in case of a 10th man. Dashama Vishay Saptami. So, well, in case of that, it doesn't apply. You see, how will we falsify? In a Anumana Vakyam, so when you say reasoning, means you will give some logic. Some reasoning means you ultimately give a reason. Now, that reason is called Hetuhu in Anumana Vakyam. Paksha, Sadhya, Hetu, right? We have seen in the initial portion itself. Paksha, Sadhya, Hetu, and then, well, Paramarsha, etc., Nigamanam. So, Hetu, all the time, whatever you want to prove, what will you say? Because this. When you say, the mountain has a fire, because it has a smoke. So, whenever there is a smoke, there is a fire. Where did you see that? That such a kind of a vyapti, invariable concomitance. Whenever there is a smoke, there is a fire. Where have you seen? Oh, in the kitchen, in a yagashala, I have seen. And therefore, here also there is a smoke on that hillock. And therefore, there is fire. So, you actually prove the fire on the hillock, which is paroksha, of course. If it is a pratyaksha, why should you talk about all this kind of anuman? So it's a paroksha. You are seeing a smoke, but not seeing a fire. In that case, still you want to gain a knowledge of a fire, or you gain a knowledge of fire, which is indirect, paroksha, by anumana. Clear? And there you give a reason, because there is a smoke on. So that is their thing. Now, if you reverse it, whenever there is a fire, there is a smoke. That is not true, right? And therefore, like our gas stove or like our this cooking range, right? So fire means it makes it hot. Fire means hot. Fire does not mean light. Yeah, that's not correct. Your vessel, which is very hot, fire is present, but there is no light. Prakasha is not a nature of the fire. Ushnata is a nature of fire. Anyway, and therefore, you are making a rule. Bas. What? Veda Vakyam always gives paroksha jnana. Swargadi Vakya gives you paroksha jnana of Sarga. Therefore, end portion of the Veda, Upanishad, that is also part of Veda. So that is also Veda Vakya. That Veda Vakya will give you the knowledge of Brahman also paroksha. That kind of a rule has an exception. Like in a simple Anumanam also there is a exception. And this exception I have told you. Whenever there is a smoke, there is a fire. We said, okay, make it just reverse. That's it. Your Anumanam becomes wrong. And therefore, Nayayikas talk about 5 types of fallacies in reasoning by which the Anumanam falls down. One of the dosha is Vyabhichara. And this Vyabhichara, some exception in the rule. That's called Vyabhichara. So once you show the exception, the rule is gone. So Mahavakya also falls within that exception. Entire Karmakanda portion of the Veda Vakya gives you a Paroksha Jnanam pertaining to not just Svarga, pertaining to Punya Papa or Nitya Paroksham, pertaining to Devatas, Nitya Paroksham, pertaining to other lokas, Nitya Paroksham. That's so entire. We say, well, what you said that Veda Vakya gives you a Paroksha Jnanam, that is true in most of the cases. So, and therefore, you make a rule, no problem. But there is one exception, and that is Mahavakya. Even though it belongs to Veda, still it gives you a Paroksha Jnana. Simple reason. Simple reason is what? Simple reason is what? Brahman is aparoksha. Therefore, so Mahavakya, even if you give a knowledge of a Brahman, that is because Brahman being aparoksha, you get a aparoksha jnana. Whereas Swarga, Punya Papa and all these lokas, everything is nitya paroksha. It is all paroksha. Nitya paroksha. Nitya paroksha also I have told you before. And anitya paroksha also is there. And therefore Freedom Tower in New York is a anitya paroksha for me. Till I go and see. When I see, parokshatvam has gone. So it is anityam. But this Punya Papa and Loka and all this, from the standpoint of a human life, are definitely Nitya Paroksha. You again, if you are born again as a human being, either in Czechoslovakia or in India or anywhere, this will remain Paroksha. Swarga and Punya Papa, Devatas, all remain Paroksha. All the time. Anyway, so Purupakshi has made a wrong rule. Whenever there is a Vakya, there is a Paroksha Jnanam, that is Vyabhicharatah. Acharya says, Dashame Vyabhicharatah. Because of the Vyabhichara. So, because of the deviation in the rule, because of that exception in the rule. And as I told you, Vyabhichara is called as a Hetva Bhasa. It is not a Hetu, right? It's a Vyabhichara, means a deviation, exception. Well, is a fault basically in a reasoning. Hetu means a reasoning. Hetu abhasa. So that hetu appears as a hetu, but really it is not a hetu. And when we show that this particular fault is there in your hetu, that hetu falls off. Then anumana falls off. In anumana always there is an argument or reasoning, logic, along with example of course, but that falls off. Like we always say even dharma, adharma, in that case also we use this word vyabhichara. So dharma means a rule, definitely, right? Universal law, etc. In that also vyabhichara, that we exception, we call a dharma. So that is how. So this word is known to us basically. Anyway, so this is how we have established that in case of a Mahavakya, even though what you said Vedavakya gives a Paroksha Jnanam, etc., it is fine. But then basically this can give Aparoksha Jnanam in case of a Mahavakya because Vastu is a Aparoksha. Anyway. Now, further. No, but then what about this meditation? Okay, your Shravanam Mananam gives Aparoksha Jnana. Then what is Nididhyasana? Why Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has to mention about Nididhyasana? And Nididhyasanam is very popular in Vedantic circle. Then you said, well, you know that you are Brahman through just Shravan Mananam Mahavakya Vichar. Means as if in your mind there is no role of a Nididhyasana. It looks to us like that. Then why Upanishad mentions Nididhyasana? Atmavare Drashtavyaha, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. Upanishad itself, Yajnavalkya says to our Maitri, right? And therefore, why Upanishad has to say that? What is the role of Nidhyasana? That will tell you. We are telling you also, and that will tell you. But don't just to include meditation or Nididhyasanam in this knowledge. Well, you should not say like this that Shravana Mananam gives a Paroksha Jnanam and Nididhyasanam gives a Aparoksha Jnanam. That's not correct. Don't mix up issues. There are many issues of the Jiva And Nididhyasanam addresses certain issues. Yeah, Nididhyasanam addresses issues because Jnanam is there, clarity is there, Pravachanam is there, but everything is there. But just result of the knowledge is not there. That's it. Everything is there. Scholarship is there. Everything is there. Just still he says, I am a samsari. Even if he doesn't say, but his attitude, etc., reveals he is a samsari. So there are certain issues. Then the Nididhyasanam addresses, definitely addresses, even after gaining clarity of the knowledge. Anyway, so that comes later also, we'll discuss that. Now verse number 81. Sato paroksha jivasya brahmatvam abhivanchataha nashyet siddha parokshatvam iti yuktir mahatyaho. Here Vidyaranya points out, that he addresses Purvapakshi, that you said Mahavakya gives a paroksha jnanam. So if Purvapakshi's view is held true, then Vidyaranya says there will be funny consequences, basically. Because Jivatma has entered this Gurukulam, and he knows himself that he is a Jivatma. And while of course teaching is from the teacher, what? You are Paramatma. So I am Jivatma, that kind of a knowledge a student has even before he is exposed to the Shastra. So I am Jivatma is Aparoksha Jnanam about himself. Right? I am Jivatma is a Aparoksha Jnanam he has. Before he entered the Gurukulam or before he starts studying. And then he has come to the teacher for what purpose? Well, he has not come for the Aparoksha Jnanam of a Jivatma because it is already accomplished, but he wants to gain a new status of himself. He wants to add, I'm using this purposely, he wants to add one more status. What? Brahmatva. Okay? And therefore, he already has Aparoksha, he has already a status of a Jiva which is Aparoksham. He wants to have now a Brahmatva status by studying Mahavakya, Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. So Brahmatvam is a additional status he wants to gain entering into Gurukula. And suppose student gets a Paroksha Jnanam of a Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam through the classes, Mahavakya Vichara, Shravana Mananam. And then the rule is this, that if you gain a Paroksha Jnanam of a thing, then the object also must be Paroksha. And therefore, Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam Jnanam is a Paroksham he is gaining, then definitely both of them, Jivatma and Paramatma, both of them should be Paroksha. Like, if you are gaining right now, say, Paroksha Jnanam of a Badrinath, right? Why? Because Badrinath is Paroksham right now. So even if I'm talk about Badrinath right now to you, you gain a knowledge also of Badrinath. What kind of a knowledge? Paroksha Jnana. Because for you right now, Badrinath is Paroksham. So if he gains a through Mahavakya in a Shravana Mananam, in a class, well, if he gains a Paroksha Jnanam of a Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, right, then definitely that shows that the object of that Jnanam, Jivatma and Paramatma, both should be Paroksha. And therefore, that means Jiva himself has become now Paroksham. At the end of Shravanam, he accomplishes he accomplishes both as Paroksham. Before Shravanam, at least he had an advantage that he was telling, I am a Jivatma, means a Aparokshatvam of Jivatma is there. Now after gaining a knowledge in a class, and that is Paroksha Jnanam of a Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, well then Paramatma also is Paroksham and Jivatma also is a Paroksham. So he has lost a status which he already have that. And that's how Guru has taken away, his Aparokshata status from himself. Guru generally takes away, right? Gukarastva andhakaro vai rukarastva nivartaka. Generally we say like that. Guru generally does, tapaharinaha. We always say like that. Shishya hrit tapaharinaha. Well, he takes away the tapa of this Shishya, all samsartapa, by knowledge. And but he, this guru has taken away the aparokshatva status of a jiva, which he was enjoying before. Aparoksha jnanam definitely one enjoys. I am jiva. Well, it's aparoksha jnanam that he was enjoying. That also has gone now. Because now he has gained jivatma paramatma aikya, paroksha jnana, through Mahavakya. Because Mahavakya gives paroksha jnana. And therefore, jivatma also is a paroksha. That cannot be like this. Jivatma Paramatma Aikya Paroksha Jnanam. Swamiji, but in that Jivatma remains a Paroksham and Paramatma remains a Paroksham. Then where is Aikyam? Then where is Aikyam? So if you say Mahavakya gives you Aikya Jnanam but Paroksha Jnanam, means both should be Paroksham. And therefore, well, otherwise you will ask me, Swamiji, Jivatma remains a Paroksham. This is fun he is making, understand that. So, Jivatma remains a Paroksham and Paramatma remains a Paroksha Jnana. Still he has got Aikya Jnana. How? How is it possible? So both will be Paroksham. So he has lost Aparokshatva status after attending classes. So Swataha, that's what he is telling now. Swataha Aparoksha Jivasya. Jiva, who has come to this Vedanta classes, well, this poor student, who he has a desire to gain Brahmatva, Brahmatva Vivanchati, he says. He wants to gain a Brahmatva status, well, additional status. Siddha Aparoksha Tvam Api Nashet Jiva as Swataha Aparokshasya. Earlier he was saying, well, I am Aparoksha. I am Jiva, etc. He doesn't say I am Aparoksha, I am Jiva. So his Jivatvam was Aparoksha. So Siddha Aparokshatvam Nashet Jiva, well, that, Siddha Aparokshatvam, well, which was there, now it has been lost after Mahavakya Shravanam. And therefore Vidyaranya says your interpretation about Mahavakya will lead to this, that you said Mahavakya Vichara gives you Paroksha Jnanam. Well, iti, if this quotation, Yuktihi Mahati Aho, your reasoning is very, very wonderful to say that Mahavakya gives a Paroksha Jnanam, etc. Aho is a word used for exclamation. Ashcharya. So your reasoning is indeed wonderful. Your Mahati Yuktihi, you have given a Yukti. Vedavakya gives you Paroksha Jnanam. Therefore, Mahavakya, which belongs to Veda, also gives a Paroksha Jnanam. That Yukti, reasoning. Anumana Vakya, we have seen that. I will once again remind you that Anumana Vakyam. So, Mahavakyam Paroksha Jnana Janakam. Mahavakyam Paroksha Jnana Janakam. Why? Vedavakyatvat. Example, Svargadi Vakyavat. Right? Svargadi Vakya. Svarga, etc. Also you gain a Paroksha Jnanam. That's a Vedavakya. Same way, Mahavakya also is a part of Veda only. Always it will give you Paroksha Jnana. Your Yukti, this kind of reasoning is really wonderful. Verse 82. Vruddhimishtavatho moolam api nashtamiti drusham laukikam vachanam sartham sampannam tvat prasadatah. Well, he says, even though your Anumana, Vidyaranya says, even though your Anumana is very funny, but at least it has an advantage that it gives us a fun. And there is a proverb which is popular in the world. And for proverb, we always look for an example, and your reasoning, your yukti itself is an example for us to remind us a particular proverb. What is that proverb? Well, that, they say a person who invested some money, capital, for generating a certain interest in certain company, etc. or in a bank, whatever. And at the end of few years, well, he lost even capital also. So for this proverb, your interpretation, your yukti, well, serves as an example. Vidyaranya says to that Purvapakshi. Because Shishya has invested, he is a Parokshatvam. He came to the class, he has invested his Parokshatvam. And at the end of the class, after listening to Mahavakya, etc., he wants to actually generate a interest of a Brahmatvam. But instead, he has lost even that capital also, Aparokshatvam also is lost there. that is what has been told here. Simple. Vruddhim means interest. Ishtavataha, Ishtavata means the name of a person who is a desirous. Ichcha dhatu is there, right? So Ishtavata, he has a desire of a interest for the, but that is how he has invested. But Moolam api nashtam. Ishtavataha, who has such a desire to increase, to get a new status or to get a interest by investing a capital, but Moolam api nashtam, he has lost even that capital also. Iti, this is a proverb. So, idrisham laukikam vachanam, such a popular proverb used in the world. Sartham sampannam, such a popular proverb in the popular in the world. Sartham sampannam means it has become useful. Such a proverb has become useful by what? Tvat prasadataha, because of your beautiful interpretation of a Mahavakya Vichara. You said Mahavakya Vichara gives a paroksha jnanam. Well, such a interpretation of your through the reasoning, has been useful to us to make this proverb more popular in the world. So, it is not a right approach. Mahavakya generates a paroksha jnanam is not a right approach. And then Purvapakshi comes up with a very, very, very serious issue. Say verse 83. Antakarana sambhinna bodho jivo parokshatam arhatyupadi sadbhavat natu brahmanupaditah. This could be the doubt of even our seekers also. Very beautiful Purvapaksha. Purvapakshi says you can never get a aparoksha jnanam of Brahman. Very intelligent. Why? See, you said Brahman is of the nature of consciousness, all-pervading, and that all-pervading consciousness is available as a intimate self, self-evident self, I, and that is the Mahavakya you are going to say. But the very I comes due to Antakarana Upadhi. If Antakarana Upadhi is not there, how you are going to equate it? So, basically, since consciousness is enclosed in the Antakaranam, it is available as I, Sakshi Chaitanya. And so, Aparoksha Anubhava is because of ultimately Antakarana Upadhi. Right? Only when mind is, I, Sakshi Chaitanya is, like this wall and pen and all, they will not have Aparoksha Anubhava of consciousness, even though that is also consciousness. Anything is in the creation is consciousness, essentially. Name and form is mithya. But they are not having that advantage to say that I am consciousness. I am self-evident consciousness. Why they don't have advantage? Because the mind is not there, Sukshma Sharira is not there. So, you are saying this all-pervading consciousness is ultimately in the form of this I, Sakshi Chaitanya, etc., etc., Pratyagatma, innermost self, in the form of I. But very I is possible due to Antakarana Upadhi. So you are able to say this Aparoksha Jnanam, right? In Aparoksha Jnanam is I am in form of I ultimately. Brahman is I, that is Aparoksha Jnanam. But that is due to Antakarana Upadhi. You should understand that. He is telling us. So, all to become, all, he requires a mind to say, I am all, everything. So, basically, Brahman is in Nirupadikam by definition, and therefore, such a Upadhi Rahitam Brahma is never available for Aparoksha Anubhava. You can never get Brahma Aparoksha Jnanam. However, Mahavakya Vichara you do, this is Purvapaksha. So, he says, Antakarana Sambhinna Bodha Jivaha. Bodha, Chaitanya, consciousness. What kind of consciousness? Antakaranena Sambhinnam. Or Sambhinnaha, Bodha. So, Antakaranena Sambhinnaha. Bodha, the consciousness obtained in the mind, enclosed in the mind. Antakaranena Sambhinnaha. Enclosed in the mind. That is, well, that jiva antakarana sambinna bodha, consciousness enclosed in the mind, that is called jiva. That so that jiva has aparoksha jnana. Basically, aparokshatam arhati. So that jiva deserves aparoksha jnanam, that I am jiva, etc. He says. So we can have a jiva aparoksha jnanam is possible because upadhi sadbhavat, jiva has got this medium called antakaranam, in which consciousness manifests, and well, he is able to say, I am self-evident consciousness, etc. So jiva gets a paroksha jnanam, and that's how he has a paroksha jnanam. I am a jiva, etc. Natu Brahma, whereas Brahman does not deserve a status of a aparokshatvam because anupaditaha, because Brahman has no upadhi. By definition, you said Brahman is free from all upadhis. So this is a anupaditaha, because of a devoidance of etc. of a all upadhis. So this is tasil pratyaya. It's in the sense of a panchami. It's in the sense of a hetu. So we can have a jiva parokshatvam jnanam, that is possible, but Brahma aparoksha jnanam is not possible. And therefore we cannot have jiva Brahma aikya aparoksha jnanam through Mahavakya is not possible. Jiva has that aparoksha jnanam. That's possible. Brahman cannot have. Jiva says, I am conscious being, self-evident. Can say, very well, but then due to antakarana. And Brahman does not have any upadhi, antakarana upadhi, etc. Then Brahman cannot say, I am Brahman, etc. And therefore, aparoksha jnanam for Brahman is not possible. And therefore, jiva Brahma aikya aparoksha jnanam also is not possible. Jiva can get aparoksha jnanam. Vidyaranya has to answer. And we will also answer in 3 verses, 4 verses. And therefore, we'll keep it aside right now. We'll see in next session. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.